Welcome back to Live Code. Remember to subscribe to the channel if you would like to be an expert programmer. In this video, we are going to show you how to integrate Swagger and Spring Boot. Also, develop a simple REST API application. Let's start. Firstly, we have created a Spring Boot application. Here are all the dependencies by default. Just check out our previous video if you don't know how to create a Spring Boot application. We need to add one more dependency here, as we would like to use Swagger UI and OpenAPI. Let's add Spring Doc dependency. Remember to refresh the Maven project in IntelliJ. We can see the dependencies folder has been updated. Next, let's update the application.properties. In this project, we are going to use 8081 port. And we would like to include the error message in the response. Everything looks good. Now, move on to create an object calling user, under the model folder. This object will be our response body. To make it simple, we only need two fields. There are id and name. We need to generate the getter and setter also. Then, we would like to create a controller. Let's call it user controller, under the controller folder. Add required annotation to let Spring Boot know. This is a REST controller. Create a simple method to expose the REST API. We make a method called getUser, which accepts only one parameter. Develop a business logic here. If the id is equal to 1, we will set username and id. Then return to client side, which is a normal response without any exception. If the id is not equal to 1, we will throw an exception to the client side. Here is an example. We throw 409 conflict here. We can also add the error message. Finally, adding request mapping annotation, to let Spring Boot know how can we call the method via REST API. Here we would like to use the get method with /user path. Everything looks good. Let's start the Spring Boot application. Open your browser, navigate to the above URL. You will be able to access the Swagger UI. We can see our controller here with one available API. Also can test our API to see whether it works as expected. We have performed by using id 1 and 2. Everything works as expected. There is lots of information we can find on the Swagger page, such as possible responses and schemas. However, we would like to enrich the API, to make it human readable, such as giving a name to the controller. We can use tag annotation in our controller class. Give a name call user. Restart the Spring Boot project, and see the result. Once restarted, you can refresh the browser. We can see Swagger is showing user, instead of user controller. Next, we would like to enrich the API summary. We can add operation annotation in our methods, adding meaningful summary there. And then restart the Spring Boot application. Refresh the browser, and we can see the summary. Now, move on to enrich the responses. We can use API response annotation by placing the description you want, also the response code you defined, and the content type. Normally, we will use JSON. You may need to define the schema if you have. Here, the user is our response schema. Restart Spring Boot application again. Now, we can see the description has been updated. And the media type changed to application/JSON. As we have other response need to handle. Let's add one more API response for this method. We would like to define the description, response code, and also content. However, we are not going to define the schema, as we don't have any response body in this case. Restart the Spring Boot application again. Refresh the browser. We can see there is one more response shown. Scroll to the top. We see the words OpenAPI definition with some version numbers, which are not what we want. Let's update the wording also. Go to Spring Application class. We are going to add a bean below the main method. Let's call it OpenAPI config. It will return the OpenAPI object. OpenAPI object should contain info object. The info object is to customize the wording in Swagger UI. To make it easier to read, we put it into another method. We can update the title, description, version, even contact and license there. In our case, we only update the title, description, and version. Once complete the method development. Sure that we need to restart the application to make it effective. Let's refresh the browser. We can see, all of the information has been updated. Here is the look finally. Thank you for the time on watching the video. If it is useful and helps your business, kindly like the video and subscribe to the channel. Comment down below, if you are familiar with OpenAPI now.